Hello, and I trust you are having a beautiful day wherever you are in the world. And if you're not having a beautiful day, why not? Why aren't you changing it? There's an often quoted saying about if a lie is told often enough, it becomes the truth. And I can think of no greater example of this than the many, many different versions of the Bible. That's the most truthful part of it. Whether you look at a King James, a New International, a New Revised, or whatever edition, they are all versions of the truth. That same story that is given in those 66 books of the Old and New Testament is exactly the same story in Wagner's Ring Cycle. Now, if you were to look at an early stage setting of the Ring Cycle, it'll be in a mythological perception of what this old world looked like, this world of giants and dwarfs and gods and things. But equally, it can be set with a massive aircraft hangar. You can put the singers in business suits and things and carrying briefcases. But the story doesn't change. Likewise, the story that is in the Bible, in the Old and New Testament, it's been fixed to a way back 2,000 years ago time. And yet it isn't. It plays out every day. Let me give you an example of this. That saying about walking into worlds, being in this world but not of it. So, for example, I can go into a church that is opened up as a food bank, and let me tell you, there are some very tragic, broken souls that frequent these places, medically damaged, pharmaceutically damaged. Some of them may have been in and out of prison. Some of them have took the escapism route and gone into the trap of this or that drug, which costs money and keeps them in poverty, and they live in this world of hell. And the look on the faces of some of them is a look of like they're waiting for that second shoe to drop. I can only help them if they approach me. I can only try and shine a light out. And you're up against another group who will show an interest in what you say. And deep down, I feel that they know what you're saying is right, but they won't accept it because they have this blockage called a belief system put in the way. It's been fixated into a secular historical story, and yet it is not. And a perfect example of this, when you disturb the minds of those that have a belief system, it's like turning the tables upside down in the temple where the money lending is going on. Basically what happens in these food banks, it's like a safari. This is why these food banks are always held in religious centre venues, because they're like lions who are waiting to pounce on some very broken souls and offer them a salvation, which is just basically they're giving their power and their attention and therefore giving their power away to another intermediary. And yet it's so silly because you have a direct connection. It comes back to that analogy in the last video of you've experienced probably numerous times the day that you listen to this video of this. You know what it's like to go from sitting to standing, but how complicated it would be to try and write that out and explain it, and it would be pages and pages and pages, but you know it from the experience of doing it. So this video really is aimed at a very specific group, It is not aimed at those. Let's put it this way. The Christ in me recognizes the Christ in you because of the vibrational frequency that we're on. This is something in the metaphysical that I can't point to. There is no tangible, solid substance to it. It just is, and it is everywhere, and you can see it everywhere. This world is perfect. There is nothing wrong with it. Everything is exactly as it is meant to be. You are a co-creator. You may have been told otherwise and made to feel small and insignificant, but you're not. You've just forgotten. You just got what I have because I reflect the world, amnesia. You've forgotten who you are. It's in the word us. It's you and spirit. It's like the head and the individual hairs. We're all pushed out from the head as individual strands. But the trick is to recognize that you are a strand, you are a individualized expression of something else. Let me give you an example that I'm offering you a script here. So I'd like you to picture a ball. Now, you may have pictured a tennis ball, you may have pictured a basketball, you may have pictured a coloured plastic ball in the ball pits that young children play in. You may have pictured a cannonball, an iron cannonball, or a football, or a rugby ball. And as I'm saying this, I'm sure that in your mind, you're creating images to go with what I'm saying. The vibration that I'm putting out in the ether that you decode again and hear as words. So you've got this ball in your mind, and just go through that the examples I've given you. Now you can keep changing that. You can change that ball. Now try and put that on paper. What's going to happen? See, in the mind, in the unseen realm that is within inside you, you're creating. But what you've created in the mind, when you try and put it on paper, can only take one form. But what's to stop you on that piece of paper of drawing that rugby ball, that basketball, that beach ball, or those plastic balls, or the cannonball, or any ball, or even the ball in the sky, the moon, or the sun, and if you're getting triggered and saying, the world's flat and they're just discs, well, I don't know. I can see them both ways. I can see them as round, I can see them as balls, I can see them as circles. It doesn't really matter. It's just another external thing, and it could be either, because this reality is like that. So, yeah, I dwell amongst some poor, tortured souls, and it's heartbreaking to see, but while they are clinging to that prescription to make them feel better, from a business that is a business in sickness, and to keep that customer base when you deal in sickness, you're going to keep your customers sick so they come back for more. And it's ironic that those that are doing good, that are preaching the word, from the perspective of religions, organized religions, they're not actually doing good at all, but they're trying to lure people into basically what is a cult. But it's because people who've forgotten who they are, they're stuck in a rut. And it's tragic to watch, but it's being a fisher of men. You're looking at all the oysters and looking for the pearls, being aware of all the beauty of everything that's around you. So going back to that analogy of going from sitting to standing, and how you don't even think about it, it just becomes second nature through practice. There's a saying that I think it's in one of the Gospels about everything that this Jesus, which is an archetype, it's a character, it's something to emulate, it's something to be, it is something within you. Psalm 82, it says about you are princes, you are sons, but you will die as man, because you come into this reality to have this physical experience. You have the ability to co-create, but do you think you're going to get let loose to create until you have mastered all your emotions and all your thoughts? Because what would you create? More chaos. Just look around this external world, and I think you'll see. I mean, let's face it, if you look at what news is, it is classed as entertainment. It is, as True Love Channel, as Yolanda says, it is just a theatre, it is a world stage, and you're an actor in this theatre show called life. And then, of course, you have theatres of war and things going on, wars and rumours of wars. But, of course, if you give your attention to it, it's going to become solidified in the mind, and therefore it will become solidified and will appear to be real in this reality. But if you're prepared to do that inner work, if everything in this reality is reciprocal, like you breathe out carbon, the trees take it in as food and give oxygen in return, which you breathe in, and you've got this beautiful cycle going on, there's a reciprocal arrangement in the physical realm. What about in the metaphysical? When I go about, it appears I may not be doing much apart from walking, but I'm walking into worlds, because I'm walking in this physical world, but I'm creating those that are coming towards me, those that have a limp, using crutches or in a wheelchair. That's not what I'm seeing. If I get a direct message and someone is saying that they have an illness or a disability of some kind, I'm not reading that. I'm changing it. I'm overwriting it. I'm seeing them healthy. I'm radiating that out. And the beauty is in not doing it in such a noticeable way that you're going to get thanks and praise for it. The beauty is in doing it anonymously and just changing the world around you, but oxygen mask on self first. That's not being self-serving, but if you don't look after self first and heal self, how can you help heal anybody else? That's not to say that this physical being has perfected it, that I'm still going through a transition, but I can see the magic. I know what that experience is like of what is called the birth from above, the dove coming down. It's as difficult as trying to explain going from sitting to standing and that entire process. Where did the idea come from of doing that? And then the whole process of the body. It would take so long to try and explain. But the crudest analogy that I can give, it just feels like a white light descends upon you. You feel this elation, this joy, this euphoric feeling that you just want to laugh, you want to smile, you want to cry. But it's like a high. You can't stay there because you've got to walk two worlds, and you're presented with this external world, which is its complete polar opposite. It looks very negative. But you don't have to see it that way. If you can see through that superficial veil of presentation, which is all an illusion. If you don't believe me, I'm going to say go and look at True Love 2 channel, the breakdowns on events, and what they're really showing. This is a triage, emerge and see realm, and many are missing the mark. They're not seeing it, unfortunately. It's tragic, but it just means they'll have to go round again. You've got the Grim Reaper. It's about harvesting. It's harvesting seeds. The good ones will be taken to the next. The seeds that have not done so well, that have not fallen on fertile soil, which is these bodies, will be recycled and get to go round again, because you can go round as many times as you like. It's unlimited rides in this reality. It's a real reality. Anne-Marie Uber gave a brilliant analogy with those old cassette tapes. Now, the part of the tape that is going past the magnetic reader is at a constant speed, but obviously the two spools, the reels, if all the tape is on this side, as it passes through, it's getting smaller and that's getting faster. This one starts off fast and slows up. It's almost like a conception of time and why things feel like they're speeding up or slowing down, and yet there's this measurements that would imply that it's constant and that it's linear, and yet it's not. It's a beautiful, beautiful experience if you can just pierce that veil. That requires doing the inner work. You've got to clear all those blockages so that Christ consciousness, that Kundalini rising, can ascend, can light up the whole interior world. Now, there are no physical dimensions to it, so it seems infinite, and I don't even want to find the edge of that. I'm enjoying being in the moment, appreciating every moment of it, like it's the last one in this reality. I mean, I could be setting myself up by what I'm saying now. Maybe I've only got 7 years to live, but a short, fulfilled life would be better than a long, boring life, or a life in the realms of what I witness around me at these food banks, these poor, tormented souls living a hell every day and just can't get out of it. And I'm trying to reach out a hand to them, but whether they'll take it, because they will, especially if they have an addiction. But that makes perfect sense, because if you think about it in the story of Jesus and the disciples, there's a Judas there. There's one that betrays you. Brian Scott has talked about this recently. He mentioned about Alan Watts probably died from alcohol. That's his Judas. Neville Goddard, it would seem like, to drink, and that was his Judas. But they had it, although they're short lives in time span, when we see it in years, they had very fulfilled lives, and they have left a beautiful legacy. They've left a beautiful carbon footprint. I do look up to them. I don't put them on a pedestal, but I do look up to them because they have shown the way. That's just 2 examples. There are many, many more. You're creating. You're co-creating. Now, think of it like you're creating a meal. You'll take a little bit of this spice, a little bit of that flavouring, a little bit of this, and you'll put it in. And this metaphorical meal, the truth to you, is from listening to all these different things, but then weighing up inside, digesting it, processing it inside yourself. What feels right to you? And it comes back to describing the process from going from sitting to standing. You know already from the experience what it feels like. And it is the true sight, is all in the feeling. I'm grateful to be here at this time, and regardless of what your beliefs or your opinions or whatever about anybody, I'm going to, in some ways, attach to the chronology as shown by archaics because it makes sense. It's self-proving. I've tested this for myself. It's basically, again, what Neville Goddard says, test it for yourself. That was a brilliant introduction because it's like, I'm not being asked to pay a subscription. There's no catch to this. It's just an open invitation to test it for yourself. But what are you testing? You're testing denying this external world, the facts as they are presented to you at that moment, and then the potential of where you go with that. Are you going to go into anxiety state and fear? It's like, oh shit, I've got a phone bill or a utility bill, and how am I going to pay this? I've got no money. And you're going to feel the negative. That's what we're programmed to feel. But what if you can unlock a way of changing that inside yourself? Imagination creates reality. You feel in the state that you wish to be. So you go to the end, you remember the future. This is the fluidity and the beauty of this thing called time that is given a linear perception. You go to the end, you remember the future. You ask yourself, how would it feel that knowing that you've paid that electric bill or utility bill, whatever it is? The devil's in the detail. That's not really part of the message. They're just examples. And this is where we all fall down when we focus on the details. The devil is in the detail. But the story, the essence of the story, the essence, that is what is in you. Your true you is your essence. It's right in the middle. It's very thin. It doesn't actually have a physical form. But that's the real you. It's just you've got to find it inside yourself. Unlock it. That requires doing the inner work, getting rid of those negative blocks. The things that are saying you, that's not possible, you can't do that. You don't have permission to do that. All these restrictions that are placed on you because you are in your most restricted form, because you created this. Not you as an individual that only came in as a conscious memory for X number of years. I'm talking about the real eternal you here that has probably had many, many lifetimes and been through all kinds of experiences, and that's why you've got the one you have now. Depending on what you do and what you experience in this life will determine where you go next. So you're doing yourself a real favour by going inside yourself, getting to know yourself, know your enemy, where your enemy is your own self. You are your own worst enemy. There's no enemy knows you better than you. Your lower consciousness that is frightened by everything, that frightened inner child that doesn't like change, the fear of the unknown, the fear of this, the fear of that monster, that shadow in the corner, because it doesn't know what it is. But through the experience, by putting on l'amour, which is the spiritual armour, the word love in French, armour is l'amour. You wear that spiritual armour, nothing can harm you. I am seeing this, I am witnessing this, I am observing this, I am the experiencer, I am the observer, I am the witness of all that I see around me. And it's beautiful. It's so beautiful I can laugh and cry at the same time, because it is a wonder, and I do wonder about it. And there's the paradox, it's a wonder, but then we wonder, and then when you see from one perspective, you wonder why others can't see it and things like this. It's beautiful. It is absolutely perfect, and the only way you're going to know this is to feel it inside, to experience it, and there are plenty of ways of doing it. I would personally say go with the Neville Goddard route. Some of you may find that too of a biblical flavour, but see past that. It's not about a historical story, it's the message that is in it. Look, this is the easiest way, rather than try and struggle to say it's easier to just say it. Where are we? Like Jesus teaches Nicodemus. Nicodemus doesn't understand what being born again. He's taken the literal. This is in John chapter 3, Gospel of John chapter 3. So I've got to go back inside my mother's womb as an old man. Well, no, that's ridiculous. It's physically impossible as well. And there's no umbilical cord or anything, so how would that even work? That's a nonsense. It's not talking about that. It's talking about the spirit. Because you are the consubstantiality of physical material and the pattern of the spirits, the pater and the mater. And to have this experience in this solid physical reality requires having a physical body to operate in it. But this is the thing, you're walking two worlds. It's being aware that you are in the physical body, but you are not the physical body. You are not the character that is this false persona that is built around it from things you believe in and what you're trying to present to the world by wearing whatever clothing displays what you're trying to project out, consciously or subconsciously. It's just what it is. And of course, we'll automatically make sort of judgments. Well, they're not actually judgments, really. They're preferences. Some things you prefer to see, some things you don't prefer to see. It might be particular colours, or one person might be happy wearing two colours. You might think, they clash, they shouldn't. Why shouldn't they? It's up to them, if that's what makes them happy. There's a very fine line between judgment and preference. And we all have personal preferences, because this is the beauty of it. We're one, but we're in individualized form to experience it all, because it is so infinite. So something that's infinite cannot come into this physical reality without taking singular forms. But it doesn't mean it's taking one form at a time. It takes many forms. It's just whether you can see it. And you only see it in the vibration, the feeling. It'll be seen with the mind's eye, but the physical eyes can also see it, because when the energy is so strong, or when your perception is such, you'll start seeing the auras, the energies, you'll start seeing the essence of the individual. It'll guide you. It's your inner guidance system that then kicks in, because you'll know which ones to associate with, which ones to distance from, which ones will try and suck that energy away from you, those that will help build it up in the same way that you're helping to build somebody else's energy up. But it's a mutual exchange, just like with the trees and the breathing. It's spirit and air, after all. But it doesn't have a physical form, but you can see the outcomes of it. And there's a lot of negative outcomes presented in this external world, but equally, although most seem to fail to see it, there is a lot of beautiful outcomes. But they don't get mentioned, of course. They don't make the news, because the news wants to promote a more negative polarity. But there is a positive polarity. And there's another word about praise and worship. It's not worship, it's celebration. It's celebration of the awareness and feeling it. That's what you're celebrating. Don't give it away to some stone effigy that's a false idol. I'm not going to bow down and owe Almighty Neville or owe Almighty Alan Watts, but I listen to what they've said, because that spirit has spoken through them and many more. It's just whether you can hear it. And that is going to depend on what frequency you're on. But this is the beauty of it. If you're on a higher vibration, what is external to you will match your vibration rather than you being matched to a lower level vibration. While you stay in that fear state, you're only going to get that frequency. But if you can take control of yourself by doing the inner work, you raise your vibration, and a whole new world opens up, which is far more majestic and wonderful. And in exchange, you get this feeling, this beautiful feeling. And you see the world in a very different way, in a far more positive light, you could say. Wow, we've gone up to 30 minutes again. How time flies, because it is only an illusion. So I'm going to say love to you all, and I hope that's helped some of you out there that are probably just about to go through a magical experience that you're going to struggle to find words to describe. I can just feel it. That's all I can say. So love to you all, and have a beautiful, beautiful day, and ta-ta for now.